Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mastura Muhammad and I'm from University Putra Malaysia, currently serving as a senior lecturer in Department of Communication, Faculty of Modern Languages and Communication. Right? And today I would like to share my experience and a little bit of what kind of updates available for tertiary education now in terms of increasing inclusion in Malaysia. Okay. Right. So the title of my presentation today is Surviving Tertiary Education 101 Guide, the Malaysian Experience and the Way Forward. So basically the sharing will constitute the personal experience that I had, as well as what are the current provisions related to inclusion opportunities and existing challenges that still exist in higher learning institutions. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So for the presentation, there will be 5 parts that I will share with you. First, the importance of inclusion in tertiary education. And then the guidelines for the OKU, right? The disabled inclusion policy initiated in 2019, as well as my own recommendation of this policy for future enhancement. And number 4, I will also share with you what I've experienced while I was completing my master's studies in Australia, what type of experience that I think Malaysians should carry forward, should benefit from my experience to be implemented in Malaysia. All right. And the 5th point is the way forward. Okay. Without further ado, I would like to start my particular presentation today. Okay. The first part is to highlight the importance of inclusion, right? When I was a student in Malaysian higher institutions in Malaysia, that was, I think, starting from 2003 to 2008 for my bachelor's degree. I think at that point, inclusion was never even mentioned officially. You know, it was just a courtesy from the faculty as well as the university to provide some sort of assistance towards disabled students. Because back in the day, not many disabled individuals had the opportunity to go to university, right? So I want to highlight the importance of inclusion, right? The importance of providing services as well as creating environments that will increase the chances of inclusion in tertiary education. Why is it important? Okay. First and foremost, it will increase campus participation, you know, with the facilities as well as the creation of environment that is suitable for the disabled, the students as well as staff. So these particular actions will definitely increase campus participation. In other words, if the university started to provide these facilities as well as environment, welcoming environment, you know, welcoming support, obviously it will benefit not only those with disability, but then also those with able body. Yeah, because the integration between the disabled students and staff with their able body counterparts will become more of a reality than just whatever has been said. Okay. um, right. And the concept of inclusion also includes, is important because it facilitates learning. Because to me personally, as a person who experienced disability since childhood, have difficulty going to school, obtaining education from my kindergarten until my PhD. So I think the concept of inclusion, by providing the facilities as well as the environment itself, will facilitate learning. And it is important for everyone to understand that this learning process is different from one disabled person to another. So I will share with you why it's important to design specific facilitation for each disabled person on a case basis, yeah? And then the importance is also to facilitate mobility and access, right? To facilitate what we call providing access and providing reach to the disabled students as well as staff, so that they can go about, do their thing, facilitate or participate in sports, facilitate others in doing or participating in campus activities. So that is very, very important. And this can be done by increasing the quality of infrastructure available in the campus, not only in terms of the quality of infrastructure, but the reach of the infrastructure itself. It must be, the coverage must be all around campus, yeah? I mean, I understand that universities still have funding constraints to implement that, but in the future, we shall make this as a vision, right? As a vision, so that more students can benefit from um, the access that they have, the mobility that they have. When we say mobility, that doesn't mean the ability to walk, but mobility, in other words, is to be mobile in a way that they can. You know, some people with disabilities use wheelchairs. Some use walking sticks. You know, some use for those who are with vision impairment. Some use their you know, walking aid for the blind, so that, you know, that kind of facilitation is very important, right? So the importance also relies on the empowerment opportunities given to these OKU students or disabled students and staff, as well as their families, you know, by organizing activities, by acknowledging that their needs are also met in the midst of universities wanting to capture for excellences, right? And all in all, you know, these particular importance, all in all, will help those students as well as staff with disability to improve their self-esteem and visibility in the campus as well as outside of the campus, right? Okay, moving on. to highlight the importance, the government has initiated the Disabled Inclusion Policy, or the long name is the Guidelines for OKU Disabled Inclusion in Higher Education Institutions Policy, created by Ministry of Education in 2019. So basically, right? So basically, these are the objectives. I got these objectives from the guidebook itself. So basically, at first, to make sure that the environment as well as the facilities are OKU friendly, and then to create environment that is learning environment that is suitable and inclusive, also as conducive for the disabled, as well as to spread love, you know, to spread love and empathy within the campus members and the society, as well as those with disability, All right, and then there's also this, the fourth objective, to to create an environment that is sustainable, as well as independent living for all categories of disabilities, and then as well to create a more inclusive, more awareness in the community for towards the OKU or the disabled, as well as um, to guaranteed inclusion in all aspects of campus life and activities. And number 7, to enhance development programs for OKU. So these objectives, you know, while it is very good looking on paper, but then to implement it is personally, I think, still a big challenge, because to be honest, you know, even there is, I have to admit, you know, over the years there are improvements in terms of acceptance, as well as the promoting of inclusion exercises and activities in campus, but there are a lot of room for improvement still, you know, to include everyone from various categories of disabilities in campus activities, right? So I think even though the objectives are there, but the implementation is something that I would like to encourage all higher learning institutions in the tertiary education sector to adhere and apply these principles of objectives in their respective campuses, right? Even though these objectives or these policies are compulsory in public universities, but it is also encouraged to be applied in private universities or higher learning institutions as well. All right, so moving on. So these are the types of OKU, right? So right, there are hearing, there are multiple disabilities, there are vision, physical, learning disabilities, speech related disabilities, as well as mental related disabilities, or mental illness related disabilities. So these categories of disabilities are acknowledged by the Constitution based on the Act, the OKU Act, in 2008. So basically, those individuals who fall in these categories are eligible to apply for an OKU card. And it is important for parents to have this as a preparation mode, have to adhere this at a higher level, making sure that your child, you know, for instance, or your siblings or your family members have been recorded or registered as one of those in these OKU or disabled categories, so that you will be entitled for the amenities, for the advantages, for the facilities provided by the government, as well as the corporate sector related to the disabled community. Okay, all right, so moving on. So we have known the categories, and next, because of the introduction of the disability inclusion policy, right? So these is, you know, these are the among the functions of the Disability Services Unit. First, to collect and process data of disabled students, staff, and visitors, and then to function as resource center for disabled students, staff, and visitors, right? To ensure provision of facilities, this is most important, to make sure that the coverage of facilities go throughout and across the campus, right? To liaise with different various relevant parties, such as all the different units in the universities, in terms of the welfare of disabled staff and students, as well as visitors, to establish policies and administrative system in regard to meeting the needs of each mentioned here, each disabled student, staff, and visitors, to offer advice on inclusive teaching practices, as well as the appointment of liaison officers. I think this is important for, like for example, in they have liaison officers for OKU or disabled students for each faculty. So I think this move is very important and can be applied to all higher learning institutions, right? Not only to have one unit to take care of the OKU, but as long as this particular faculty, for example, one faculty has a few disabled students, so at least one of the officers can function as liaison officers for the faculty, right? I think that is an important move, because that is also what happened when I was in Australia. I mean, even though there are one disability services unit, but I have also been in contact in for the liaison officers of my faculty, right? So plan and implement empowerment programs, right? Developed strategic plans to ensure that the sustainability of the policy as well as the implementation, and to adhere all related applications and inquiries regarding services and needs of disabled students and staff. So these are the general functions of Disability Services Unit throughout Malaysia. All public universities must have this Disability Services Unit by now, yeah. And all universities are required to be a disabled-friendly campus within 5 years' time. So this policy started in 2019. So in 5 years, it is expected that disabled-friendly facilities as well as adaptations need to be implemented inside public university campuses across Malaysia. Okay, right. Moving on. So these are the various that I would like to talk about when it comes to tertiary education, right? Environmental and building spaces. This is where the barriers come in terms of the inaccessibility of the building, of the spaces that is not disabled friendly, right? Barriers also in facilitating learning, especially on individual cases, right? For example, extra time. There are times where some universities apply same rules for everyone to answer exam questions, right? They don't cater for individual cases, right? I think it is important for learning institutions to adapt to specific cases per students, because their abilities are different and the way they adapt to learning is also different. So facilitate mobility and access, right? This is related to item number 1, but this is more towards how can a disabled person get to one point to another inside the campus, right? For instance, if he or she wanted to go on the bus, right? The ramps are not available. So most times, the bus driver had to facilitate the students on wheelchair to be on board of the bus, right? So to get from point A to point B is rather meticulous and very tiring. So those barriers, right? Those barriers, for example, would somehow dictate the decisions of your particular children. Besides, the learning variations to go to universities. Right? At this moment, empowerment opportunity universities are there, but more opportunities are needed because increasingly in semester basis, more and more people with disabilities enrolling in universities because they are a proof that they can learn. But because of lack of support, sometimes the empowerment opportunities are not there, right? And then due to that, you know, lack of support sometimes, their self-esteem is also rather not developed during this period in tertiary education, right? Okay, moving on. Okay, my personal recommendation for further enhancement, okay, right? Considerations must be given on the singular basis, right? On a singular case basis. So each cases need to be examined on a case by case evaluation, right? Like I mentioned, when I was in Australia doing my master's, my particular needs are precisely mine. For example, I have note takers. I also have the opportunity to use electronic pens so that it will help me jot down notes and record at the same time. So I have these facilities based on my types of disability. And for example, I cannot write too fast or I cannot type too fast. So these provisions really helped me as a student there, and they will allow, for example, I was not allowed to keep the items, but I was allowed to keep the items as much as I needed, as long as I needed, right? I have never encountered like I have to write an extra letter because of this and that. Once I got accepted by the university, all my needs relating to whatever happens on campus is counted already, right? I am also close with Miss Laurie, the Disability Services Unit head, that from time to time will say, is there any other things that I need and things like that. So it is important, yeah. And then facilitate by upgrading equipment. So there are times when students need extra equipment to ease their, as well as how they cope with their daily lives. So this one is also needed. And I hope, because I know universities in Malaysia have this tabung wakaf, tabung, a lot of charity based tabung, so or funds. So I hope that the university's management would consider give those allocations a little bit to upgrade the equipment, as well as the facilities there, right? For instance, for the blind, they have different needs. For the mute, they have a different needs. So please make sure that you got this all covered, right? And then social emotional support. This is very important, especially for those who have any kind of disabilities, yeah? And then I think this is not only important for those who have disability, but for those who, for example, have siblings with disability. For example, you have students where they need support because they have siblings who have disability. So that also take into account. And then related officers and posts to undergo DET training. DET is disability equity training. So these officers must go through DET training to understand the different barriers, to understand the different challenges, as well as the possible solutions to the issues related to disability. All right. And then next is the next subtopic. All right, the personal experience that I have in Australia, and I think sharing this part of my presentation is something that everyone in the ministry should look upon and should like make it a point to open up possibilities for more inclusion, as I've mentioned prior in my presentation. Okay. Right. Among my personal experiences, I experienced more inclusive atmospheres in school, not only in universities, but also in primary and secondary school, right? Because I've interviewed Jamie Paris, for example, Australian Paralympic cyclist, for one of my assignments. One of my feature was about a Paralympian for sports news writing. So I got the chance to follow her around to go for a visit for Miss Paris to share her story with the school's children, the school children there, as well as her journey. Because I went to, I think, 3 schools, one elementary schools and one also right? Those with the upper level primary schools. So I think those experience really make me understand that they don't see Paris as having, yes, they acknowledge that she is blind, but they don't see that as weird. They ask very normal question, right? Like, like for example, how do you get your day? Very normal question. They don't ask like, how do you comb your hair or something like that. I think the consciousness of asking the right questions is kind of important. You see the curiosity that they have, but they ask those questions with a manner that is, to me, admirable. You don't look at someone's downside, which is, I think, very refreshing. I think when I followed her during the tour sessions, it gave me a sense of purpose. I was thinking to myself, if this going to be, it will be awesome if, this kind of programs would be implemented in Malaysia and make it like a more wide reaching programs. And then I had the opportunity to work with Disability Alliance Australia after my interview with Miss Jamie Paris. So I had the opportunity to work with Disability Alliance Australia. So one of my projects is to create awareness programs about disability rights, particularly in the state or the region of New South Wales. So what we do is beyond advertisements, we do reaching out programs, we do bridging programs whereby we integrate a lot of activities between the disabled and the non-disabled and the non-disabled. So we create a lot of empowerment programs, really, in terms of integration on how able-bodied individuals can increase their awareness and understanding of those with disabilities, right? So besides that, I also work closely with Australian Paralympic Council to ensure inclusive programs available in schools and other institutions. So after my involvement with Miss Jamie Paris, I got the opportunity to be in more serious contact with Australian Paralympic Council, and because at that time I was just I was just learning. I'm eager to learn, and I will just take those opportunity to learn in the hope of maybe bringing what I learned from my experience in Australia to Malaysia. But then after I come back, I realized it's a long road because I've seen officers and they say this cannot be implemented in Malaysia because of funding and because of other reasons. So down the road, I think I left Australia December 2011. So down the road, I can see more awareness coming, but the speed is rather something that we have to be taking care of, And then it is for me a long road towards acceptance as yet, but I can see improvements. So in regards of getting more parents, encouraging more parents to enroll their children to university, I think it is most important to start from young, right? To educate siblings, to educate the community around you that your child um, is entitled for the same opportunities that able-bodied um, able-bodied children has, yeah. And I think that is also very important in a lot of ways, right? So I, because before my Australian experience, I always wonder like, okay, I have disability, so how can I help others with disabilities? So with my involvement in various activities when while I was in Australia at the time, I realized, you know, I have a lot of things, that a lot of areas and a lot of opportunities that I can venture into, right, to help others with disabilities, right? So based on my experiences, I think more inclusion can be done in Malaysia, can be done, especially when it started early, right? When you start early, chances are possible, everything is having a higher chance of success, right? So all right, so the way forward, right? I would like to propose a way forward for tertiary education, right? In tertiary education, we need, like I said before, we need to start the exposure from an early age, right? But because, right, tertiary education or tertiary institution has become a prestige, has become somewhat of a good reputation. So tertiary education institution can be the catalyst to embrace unique abilities, right? To embrace inclusion, to embrace variety of abilities, right? I think the adaptation of both parties, either the institution and the students themselves, you know, make them more acceptable, more brave, more um, worthy of themselves within the campus. And that will give them more reasons to actively participate in campus as well as outside in their community. Yeah. And then it is also important for tertiary education to highlight or to realize that everyone has a potential to be meaningful members of the society, regardless of their abilities. Or everybody can learn, everybody can contribute in a very, no matter how big, how small, you know, everybody have the potential to contribute, no matter how small. So I hope that tertiary education will capitalize on that, realizing that everyone can contribute indeed. And I think it is very important for parents to realize that it is possible, right, for to send your child through tertiary education and get the best of the experience, providing that the institutions have to continue to work hard in terms of making sure that their services and the acceptance towards those with disabilities are in the optimum level, right? And then also universities can be, like I said, right, can be the catalyst because everyone still have belief in the education system, particularly in universities, right? Because of its prestige, I believe that universities can be catalysts to promote inclusion that will later bloom into inclusion in other aspects in life. For instance, employment, as well as you know, becoming more independent. Okay, sorry for that. Become more independent. And I think, you know, the journey, the transition between, for example, the transition between tertiary education as well as the workforce, for instance, you know, that transition, it will be hard. But then I think with the expertise that we have in universities and the various fields, university experts can hand in help in terms of how to improve the chances of employability, for example. It takes a village to raise a child. The same concept can be applied to help one disabled, each disabled students to achieve their highest potential, right? And I think with that, I would like to say thank you for the organizers of IC for giving me the opportunity to share my experience as well as my thoughts of this topic. And I think it is important for all of us to realize that tertiary education should be accessible for all, regardless of their abilities and types of ability that they have, right? I think with that, I would like to end my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day.